That's well, I'm watching the Yankees game also. So there's.
I got you. All right, let me run the intro. Dang, what am I doing? Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fifth Down Territory, presented by Stadium Rant. It's your boys at the Stewart 503 and at Bahugi, Montana. Me and Blake holding down the fort tonight while the guys got called out to some other business. This is our last week of dissecting divisions, and then we'll be talking about some preseason battles and stuff next week. We're going to go ahead and preview the Hall of Fame game, though, because we got to talk football. It's time. I can't wait any longer. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, we're breaking down a game here. It's totally a real game. It's totally real football. It's going to have us on the edge of our seats.
Are you saying it's totally real football like it's not real football? It is, in a way, real football.
It is. Like, they're going to snap it. They're going to run it. They're going to pass it. They're going to tackle.
Yeah, they're gonna run the most basic formations you can imagine. Some third string running backs are gonna have some really nice nights, and then they're gonna get cut. But I want to talk for a moment about the importance of preseason football, okay? Because everybody hates it. You know, like you get like a week into preseason and you're like, dear Lord, just cut this short and let's get the season
It's
going.
a long month. It is a long
month preseason because there is football.
We're back.
But what it is necessary for the guys, right? Some of these guys who are trying to make a roster, trying to change their life, they need these opportunities to play against other teams who are actually calling schemes and other dudes like like when you're out balling with your friends or whatever, you're not always going 100, no matter what you say. Like you're not out here like scrapping every day. But in these games, like you're playing against dudes who are trying because they want to make a roster. So it's important for those guys, and wish them the best. Let's talk about the Hall of Fame game. What are you thinking? Like who you looking to watch on Thursday night? So it's Texans, Bears, it's Hall of Fame preview where they're inducting all the Hall of Fame members. So who are you like looking to watch? I know I'm probably a little more in tune with this.
So all right. Well, to answer your question, the Hall of Famers, the guys who are getting the gold jackets, that's who I'm interested to see. And I got them written down here. We got Dwight Freeney. We got Julius Peppers. What a problem that dude was. And both of those guys, Dwight Freeney and Julius Peppers, like, could you imagine being any guy just trying to make a roster and having to try and block one of those guys?
That's so true.
You just got cut, is what just happened. Next one we got Devin Hester. Hester. That's probably the most important one because that tells you there's a way as a special teams player to make it to the NFL.
And I think it matters, right? So many people were like, Devin Hester's not going to make it over these guys. Dude was
he deserved it. It was clear. It was clear. He changed the game. He was transcendent. He had like the record in punt returns and kick returns. No, he's the best returner the NFL has ever seen. And it's not really close.
I just learned who is the running back that kind of revived his career with the Falcons a couple years back. You know what I'm talking about?
Patterson?
Yeah. Did you know he actually has more punt return touchdowns, I think, than Devin Hester does now?
I did not know that. I'm not surprised because I know that the punt because I know Devin Hester had the kick returns touchdown like for several years while he was still in the NFL, and the punt returns is one of the reasons he stayed in the NFL was to break that record, and he narrowed.
Okay, I'm gonna fact check myself real quick. So he is still leading on punt return touchdowns. So maybe it's kick return touchdowns. It was one of those. I'm
pretty sure he won that one handily.
NFL kick returns for touchdown career leaders. First place is Cordero Patterson. Yeah,
isn't that more kick return touchdowns than Devin Hester?
He has 9, which I feel like Hester has more than that, right? Isn't that a crazy stat?
I thought that was the one that he had the longest.
But anyway, either way, I'm gonna fact check this and bring back.
Devin Hester's in the. Let's continue along here because I'm kind of this was a detour anyways because you asked who I'm most excited. You asked who I'm most excited to see, and then what are the biggest storylines. So we got Patrick Willis who retired early and then went on to have a very prestigious tech career. I'm pretty sure. Like he went back to school and learned how to code and do a bunch of stuff and like didn't want to go through all the concussion stuff. And guess what? He's still getting a gold jacket. That's how good he was. Was it something McMichael? I didn't know who this guy was. I'm going to be honest with you. Then we had your guy, Andre Johnson, who was one of the biggest snubs for the past couple years. Like was one of those guys who needed to get in and hadn't got in, but he's in now. And someone Gardashaw, another guy. I'm going to be honest. I don't know who he is. I'm not going to comment. I'll tell you what I don't know. Those are the guys who got in. They're the most important. Best storyline. Does Caleb Williams play or does CJ Stroud play?
No.
Neither of them. All right.
No,
so that's the best storyline. Is how long is that question going to get prolonged? The Bears already answered that question at 1:20 p.m. The Texans haven't officially answered yet, but we know the answer. Neither of them are playing. So which brings me to my players to watch. Tyson Bagnet and Davis Mills.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, Tyson Bagent is a baller. I love his energy. I love the way he talks and carries himself in some of these meetings and stuff. And I think you're right on the money with both of these guys because there are some teams, we're looking at you, New York, who probably are going to need some quarterback help this year. Like, do we really think the way Daniel Jones has looked in camp so far, he might be starting the entire year? You're telling me they're not going to send a 4th round or a 5th round or a 6th round pick, maybe even for Davis Mills, who probably at this point in his career might play a little better than Daniel Jones? I don't know. We're going to preview the Giants, so we'll talk about that.
And then the last thing I had was the biggest snubs. And here I had Hines Ward, Reggie Wayne, and Antonio Gates. Hines Ward is the top of that list because he can block.
The intangibles, baby. He's got the block.
I'm serious though. Like that's
right. You're right.
And he was not a me first guy, but he was just always there when the Steelers needed him to. And and Reggie Wayne was a sicko in his own right. But I feel like the Colts were at their best when Marvin Harrison was there and he was the second receiver. And he was still a good one. But he was also known as a me first one. And like Dan Orlovsky would talk about it. Like he was always in the huddle, like, I'm open. And he's like every play, like ask him for the ball. And that wasn't Hines Ward.
Yeah. It really, yeah. I tend to.
That's my biggest snub is Hines Ward.
These 3 were the ones that I were looking through. My biggest snub, I think, is Reggie Wayne, just because I think, and this pains me as a Texans fan, I think he's similar in conversation to Andre Johnson, like a very underrated receiver along a stretch of time. I think what separates them is like Reggie's quarterback play obviously was transcendent. He had Peyton Manning for a lot of his career. Yeah, it's hard. I just feel like there's so much talent now in the NFL that like these conversations get harder every year. And I think we're going to have some really uncomfortable conversations when some fan favorites now start retiring. Like we talked about this on another show, but I don't think DeAndre Hopkins is currently a Hall of Famer. And that literally breaks my heart to say, because I think he was like top 5 at his position for a long stretch of years.
He has one playoff win, right?
Against something bad like that.
Against the Bills. That's it. So, but that was a while ago.
Yeah.
And then he had the Hail Murray, but that was a regular season game, so I can buy into that one. Yeah.
But yeah, Reggie Wayne is just one of those guys. Like I feel like he belongs in that conversation easily in the Hall of Fame, and I hope he gets in next year. Truly
Close.
One of the greats. Hines Ward and then Tony Gates, obviously the same way. Like a great players, great people. Played for a long time. Patrick Willis is a hard one for me. Like I know he was dominant in his stretch. It's just the longevity to me is such a big aspect.
He retired early.
He did retire really early.
How do you feel about Luke Kuechly coming up?
I guess I'd have to look like were their career trajectories similar. I think
I feel like they're very similar cases, and I think Luke Kuechly was just a generational quarterback, and he's going to be a great defensive coordinator in this league someday.
Yeah, he meant generational linebacker, not quarterback. We know
linebacker. I'm sorry.
I'm just because I don't want Blake knows ball. We know he didn't play quarterback. That's what I'm saying.
Quarterback of the defense.
Yeah, it's just
I looked up at this Yankees Phillies game and got distracted.
Yeah, he was a dominant player in his stretch. Like a dude you had to fit like game plan every time around. Doesn't have a Super Bowl, so and that's part of that is team success and how poorly that organization's been run for a while, but. Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't know. My biggest storylines of the Hall of Fame game, I think, is seeing how I think it's kind of seeing like one, I can't wait to see the Texans' new uniforms. That's some bias for me. I think it's seeing how the Bears look cohesively as a team. I think this has been a very disheveled team for a couple years. Like there are a lot of games I didn't feel like they looked prepared, and obviously we're not going to see like a really intense playbook. Like they're not going to open any of that up for these preseason games. They're going to run the most basic,
very, very basic
football. But I want to see, are these guys sound? Are they tackling right? Are they taking the right angles? Like that's coaching. Those things you coach into players. And I want to make sure that this Bears regime is doing right, starting things off on the right foot. I want to know that they had an intense, meaningful camp, and that they look like a good team when they're on the field, regardless of what the play calling is. Because, I mean, there's people with playoff expectations for this team this year. So, I mean, that's going to come not through a couple star players that you added. That's going to come through a sound football team. That stuff matters. And then my players to watch, I also had Tyson Bagent on here. Mostly because the Bears only had like 4 picks and 5 picks maybe in this draft. They took obviously Caleb Williams. They took Rome Odunze. Neither of those guys are playing.
Yeah, we're not going to see either of them. So
they took an offensive lineman next. I don't know how to evaluate offensive line very well. So they took a punter. So maybe we'll see some good punting in the 4th. And then they took a D lineman in the 5th. So yeah, I'm really watching for Bagent here, and then maybe some Bears receiver depth like Keenan Allen. I don't know that he's got a full season left in him, so I'd like to see, like, I'll be watching for who's in that wide receiver 4 conversation. For the Texans, the biggest ones I'm watching for, I'm looking at John Mechie is a big watch for me. Coming out of Bama, had some injury, had cancer scare. They have been saying that he had a really, really good offseason. He's had a really pretty solid camp. So, I would like to see him kind of establish himself as the wide receiver 4, maybe the Diggs replacement when Diggs ends up leaving eventually. And then Jawar Jordan's another guy I'm going to be watching. He was a late round speed running back draft that supposedly had a pretty good camp as well. So I'd be interested to see how he takes reps with an offense against a different team and not in touch. Kind of seeing how elusive those guys can really be. But anyway, you guys let us know if you're going to be watching the Hall of Fame game or if you're going to wait another month to get into this. But yeah, if you have any comments or any thoughts on the Hall of Fame, make sure and drop those in the comments and we'll take a look. So we're going to move right into the NFC East. This is our final division. Obviously some big name teams here, probably teams with some of the biggest fan bases in the world. So talking about these teams and like just the energy that surrounds them, we're going to start with the Cowboys. I want you to go ahead and take this first. What do you see for the Cowboys this year? And yeah, so we're doing record, most polarizing player, a hot take for the team, the best game on their schedule, and then biggest departure if we think they have one.
So yeah, I have them taking a step back. They won this division. They were the 2 seed. They were the first 2 seed to ever be upset by a 7 seed in NFL history. I have them going 9-8, missing the playoffs, and Dak walking at the end of this year because I just don't see a way that they get a deal done. I think that they did get the deal done with CD. Was it earlier today?
I saw that they were closing in on something, but I don't know the source of that. I did not see an actual deal finalized, but I'm looking now. DJ Moore got an extension 2 minutes ago. We can talk about that real quick if you want.
Okay.
4-year, $110 million extension for DJ Moore, which gives him an average value of just like $27 million a year ish, 28-ish, somewhere in that range. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, well, the deal's close. The deal's close for CD. They got Micah Parsons over there, and I think he's going to get his deal too. And I think Dak's going to be the odd man out at this point.
Maybe the report that you referenced, they said they were closing in on a 4-year deal worth $136 million-ish dollars. So DJ just signs for like 110-ish. So that's like $26 million more than DJ Moore across the same span if that contract actually comes true. So
yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing here is CD getting that deal, and I'm seeing Micah probably getting a deal in the not too distant future. And I think Dak's going to be on the free agent market and probably walking to New York or Las Vegas next year. I think those are two big market teams that would throw the bag at Dak. So yeah, I've got him 9-8, missing the playoffs. Most polarizing player for me was Zeke because I just was like, what are you doing here? Like, who's this number one running back, which is really an important position for this team. It might end up being Rico Dowdle.
Yeah, I think Rico is number one technically on the depth chart.
That's what it's going to end up being, but like, yeah, Zeke was the best you could do here at running back. Like the Cowboys, I feel like are supposed to have a good running back.
It feels very integral to their identity.
Yeah, maybe Deuce Vaughn emerges here as a dark horse. They have a couple of guys, but this Cowboys team just feels like the most fragile version of a Cowboys team. Like everything has got to go right, and them not having like a dominant running back just doesn't feel right. And with that being said, I'm going to lead into my biggest departure. That's Tyron Smith.
Same thing I have,
yeah, and rightfully so. Like and it was probably time for him to go, but I think this team's destined to take a step back here, as I pretty much alluded to.
It feels like they've crested. Like there's no ascension for this offense or defense really left. It feels very much like they have done the best they're going to do with this group, and the most you can hope for is like a repeat, which would be a one and done, probably at a lower seeding this year if they make the playoffs at all. So
yeah, I agree with everything you said right there. Best game here, I had week 3 versus Baltimore. Baltimore's got a rough schedule in the beginning of the season, and this is like one of those games I'm thinking it's still early here. Cowboys are at home and they're strong. I still like Baltimore in this game. And I feel like that's going to be like one of those early season games that kind of tells us like, can you dig deep for one against a good team? And usually for the Cowboys, the answer is no.
Yeah.
At home they have some type of edge, but I think Baltimore's running backs, knock on wood, should still be healthy in week 3. They've kind of that. Maybe that's kind of far out. But if you look at the last 3 or 4 years with what's happened to Baltimore's running backs, they've been decimated before week 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean,
so they're good. So they're due for a healthy year, hopefully. So yeah, that was my bit on the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in line with a lot of the things that you said here. For me, the Cowboys record is very similar. I've got like a 9-8, 10-7. I think it kind of depends on some coin flips here. I think they'll beat bad teams. I think they'll struggle against teams that should be on the will be perceived as being on their level. I feel like they're very much at the bottom of whatever tier you would put them in. I don't think they're true competitors for the NFC. I don't even know that they would be considered anywhere close to the playoff picture in the AFC. So I think they'll whoop up on bad teams to try and rally the fan base, and I think they're going to run the score up on teams with bad defense. My biggest departure, obviously, Tyron Smith is the big one. I also put Stephon Gilmore here. Yes, I know Deron Bland kind of emerged last season, but there were instances where this secondary did not look good. So, yes, you have Trayvon Diggs, and yes, you have Deron Bland, but I think Deron Bland is clearly the weaker of those two. And Trayvon, they're both the same kind of cornerback. They're both ball hawking guys, but Trayvon Diggs is probably going to lose a step coming off his ACL injury. And then you got this guy. So I think they're going to miss Gilmore and his stability in that secondary a little bit. My hot take is that this team will have the worst rushing attack in the NFL. That's my hot take. I think the loss of Tyron Smith is a bit of a bulldozer on the left side. I think no clear good lead running back unless they end up
all the stuff we just talked about. Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I feel like you touched on it really well. My hot take is that this team will. I think CeeDee Lamb also. Here's the coin flip side of that. I think he'll have the most receiving yards in the NFL by over 100. I think they're gonna just feed this guy, and then because the running attack just won't work at all. I think they'll be very one-dimensional. I think they're going to lose games because they can't control the clock in instances like that. And, I think you'll see this team kind of implode like a beautiful dying star. Best game for me is going to be the Lions rematch. I think, low-key, I think these teams are going to hate each other in the near future. I think the Thanksgiving games have built some bad blood between them. And I think, this last one being such a coin ref call kind of game ender, I think an ascending Lions team will look to leave their mark on a descending Cowboys team. And this is going to be a bit of a pride battle, pun intended. So we'll see who comes out on top this time, but I would wager that money on the Lions.
Texas.
Yeah, thanks. So I feel most polarizing player on this team. For me, it's going to be, you could go running back here. I think it's going to be Deron Bland. That's where I'm going to put. He ended really high on the NFL's 100 player list, like really high. He was in like the top 30, which I thought was absolutely
crazy year. Yeah. You won some money off of Deron Bland this year too.
I did win some money. I won some money off pick 6, anytime touchdown on Thanksgiving.
I remember that day.
Yeah. I made some bread on that one. So big Deron Bland guy. Don't get me wrong. But I think will he be able to live up to that level of hype? They have him as like a top 10 corner. I don't know if he's in that conversation or not, but I think a healthy year 2 would cement it, and I think a bad year 2 would not bode well for this team.
It's going to be really difficult for him to replicate that, but we'll see.
Setting the pick 6 record is. So flipping now and going to the bottom dwellers. So from the reigning champs to the reigning losers or close to it. The Giants were not the worst team in the NFC East last year. That was the Commanders, but They will be this year, is my prediction. I have this team going 2-15.
All right. Yeah, they're definitely one of the bottom 3 teams in the NFL.
I think bad, and I want to be very clear on the path to this. I think bad drafting has put them in a really, really bad aging situation. Like, you can't invest elite resources in the same area year over year. So Andrew Thomas is a good left tackle. He's had some injury problems, but they missed entirely on the giant from Alabama. I can't remember his name. That is their right tackle now. They took him really high a couple years ago. He has not looked serviceable at right tackle. The offensive line continues to be a problem.
Is it Evan Neal?
Evan Neal. Yes, thank you. And this is a line, like, I want to be clear, that made people question whether Saquon was worth a second contract. Come on now. Saquon Barkley is one of the best running backs in the NFL. You're replacing him with Devin Singletary. I like Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary will be lucky to get like 650 yards behind this offensive line. I think this will be the second worst rushing attack in the NFL. The only reason I think their rushing attack will be decent is because I think Daniel Jones will run a good
yeah.
That's what's keeping them out of last place. My most polarizing player is Daniel Jones. It has to be Daniel Jones. Quarterback is such an easy cop-out for this answer. But the truth of the matter is that it is. Like, he's coming back. He got big money. His contract's looking bad. They kind of want out of him. You saw on Hard Knocks them talking about replacing him, right? So we do this offseason Hard Knocks that airs all this dirty laundry before the season, and they're talking about Jaden Daniels and all these people, and nobody has faith in Daniel Jones. So, I mean, you have to come in and silence those doubters, or you have to probably never play in the NFL again, or at least not as a starter. So I think it'll be a big prove it season for him. My hot take is that the Giants do not have a single win going into the bye week, and that they sell every player worth their salt except for Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. So I think anybody that's not on a rookie contract that anybody would want. So J.K. Dobbins tears his Achilles and Gus Edwards hurts himself for a couple weeks. Devin Singletary goes to the Chargers, stuff like that. I mean, they're going to piecemeal this team out any way that they can. And I don't think they have as many assets as people are going to want as you would think. Overall, a very badly constructed team. And then what is a hot take for this team even? I think Malik Neighbors will be in the running for Offensive Rookie of the Year off of design. I think he has the talent to be an elite receiver. There's a lot of people who actually had him above MHJ, and people were calling that draft boredom. But I do think there's a case for this kid. Like, he's good. He's a gamer. And I think they will find a way to let him try and win games for them. I think it's too tall of a task for a rookie in his situation, but I think he'll be stat-wise incredible this year. I'm drafting him everywhere I can in fantasy. And then best game, I don't have one. Commanders, maybe. It's going to be bad. It's going to be a bloodbath almost every game. They'll win one weird game they shouldn't. I have nothing I'm looking forward to. I will not be watching any Giants football if I can help it. And then biggest departure, I don't even know what to put here. Like, probably Saquon is the obvious one. There's just no people on this squad last year that I was like excited about that left, I couldn't think of anybody. What did you have for those?
All right. So I wanted to let you finish. I want to go to most polarizing player first.
Okay.
Because that was because you said Daniel Jones. And I thought about this one, and Daniel Jones I thought was a good choice. And then I thought about it more, and I'm like, but to be polarizing, there have to be people on both sides of it. And I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who has good things to say about Daniel Jones. So that was why I have, and I don't know if mine was that much better, but I went with Daniel Bellinger with their tight end.
That's a good one.
With their tight end situation. because this is a guy I have been like holding in Dynasty and for a couple leagues, and then and let him go. And but they got this new guy. Is it? I don't know if it's Teo Johnson or Theo, probably Theo Johnson, stateside.
Theo Johnson, yeah.
So I don't know what the tight end situation at all is here, and so it's pretty much now or never for Daniel Bellinger. So that was where I went. Record for you, I had the Giants. So you had them like starting 0 and something or other to start. Oh, hey friend, what's up?
We have a special guest who wanted into the studio.
All right,
well, nowhere.
Well, Hazel, I'm going to talk about the Giants and how I think they're still bad, but marginally better than your dad does. I thought they could win. They could maybe win the first 2 games they play, specifically the first game against the Vikings. Like, this is 2 teams that don't know what they are doing, and I would say the Giants probably know what they're doing more than the Vikings do in Week 1. But outside of that, I'm kind of with you. Like maybe they win two more games. But yeah, I had the Commanders matchups as my best games because it kind of goes along with my hot take that like they play early and then like again like mid-season, and I think they could probably win that first game against the Commanders early, but I think in that second game, that's going to be that game where Jaden Daniels like really comes out against this Giants team and just makes them look silly. And then at that point, like from that point on, the Commanders are kind of going to emerge into this second team in the NFC East. Probably not this year. I think the Cowboys are still the better team this year. But I think going forward, I think it's not going to be about the Eagles and Commanders. Or Eagles and Cowboys. It's going to be about the Commanders and Eagles. That's what's going to start to happen. And so my biggest departure here, yeah, Saquon's the easy one here because he was pretty much their whole offense. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Xavier McKinney was a real force at safety, and now he's over with the Packers. And that guy's a real talent, and this defense is going to miss him.
So let's move into the Commanders, right? You brought them up, so do you want to transition right into that?
Yeah, I pretty much kind of alluded to it. So record, I had 8-9, not quite as good as the Cowboys. I had the Cowboys 9-8. Wouldn't even shock me if they were like the same record or something to that effect. But I feel like this team's going to start slow. Looking at like they have some tough games early, and maybe Jaden Daniels running quarterbacks can come out and just light the world on fire. We saw it with Lamar Jackson. We saw it with Mike Vick. We saw it with all kinds of, and like maybe he does. I still don't quite see it until I see it. But most polarizing player is Jahan Dotson here. This is a guy who's kind of been like a quarter or wide receiver who's been kind of like without like an identity here, and kind of without a role. And I think he's going to emerge as like the number 1 deep threat here for Jaden Daniels. And he's really going to take off this year as a wide receiver after kind of having a quiet start to his career. And then once that happens, I think that's going to take a couple of weeks to happen. That's when what I was talking about earlier is going to happen, where this team really starts to take off and starts to put up a lot of points and becomes a really dynamic offense. Best game, Week 8 versus Chicago. It's the top 2 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I think that at this point in the season, Chicago is going to be the better team. They're in the better situation. Maybe I'm wrong. This one could go either way, but that's just, top 2 quarterbacks. That's fun. And biggest departure here, Curtis Samuel, by all accounts, has been one of the best players at Bills camp. and he's been used in a lot of different roles here. This is my homer take, and he had it, and he's going back. Curtis Samuel is going back into his old system from before the Washington Redskins. Or Washington Commanders was with the Carolina Panthers, and his offensive coordinator was Joe Brady. And so he's back where he had his highest receiving yards total. And this kind of goes along with the Mac Hollins take that I had about the Falcons a couple weeks ago when we did the NFC South. He's not the craziest signing. He's like one of those mid kind of signings where he's a guy you're like, yeah, I'll let him walk. And then you see him go to another team and really perform well. And you're like, I probably could have got that deal done. But so that was why I had Curtis Samuel on that. And that's all I got to say about that. You're muted, brother.
Yep, she did that. My bad. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think you made some really good points, and I like Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, like mentioning some of those guys. I think this is one of the most interesting teams in the NFL. I think everybody thinks they're going to be bad. I think they future-proofed this team somewhat well. I like Jerzon Newton was a big guy. I wanted the Texans to take at 23. He slides all the way to the second round, and they grab him, which I really liked in their draft. So for their record, I actually think that they're going to go I have them at 9-8. I think.
Right? Yeah, I can buy that.
I think this is a team that's going to be better than people think. And I think that's going to be somewhat carried by Jaden Daniels being the offensive rookie of the year. So my hot take is that he is the offensive rookie of the year and that the Commanders make the playoffs in the 7th seed.
Those things would check out.
I think they do what the Bears cannot do. And I think that's mainly carried by just a little more talent in the Commanders roster and just a better performance year one.
So you got the Commanders winning that game, basically.
Yes, yeah, I have them winning that game.
That's pretty much the difference here, because I looked at that and I was like, I said that, yeah. All right, I like it. That's how close we are on.
Yeah, I think this is a team that's been overhated on a little bit. They added Frankie Louvu. They added a lot of talent as far as Jaden Daniels. They brought in Austin Eckler to be a veteran presence. They added Bobby Wagner. So they've added some veteran guys. They're aging. I think they're past their prime, but that doesn't mean they're not good still. So I really think this team's going to shock some people. My most polarizing player is Emmanuel Forbes. This is a dude that was drafted pretty highly and then pretty much literally got bent over the barrel by A.J. Brown multiple times last year. And it really shook his confidence and helped him, led to a very underwhelming performance by him. He's already been labeled a bust. He's just a small dude. It looks like he could be like your little cousin at the picnic that you're throwing deep routes to. You know what I mean? Little small, fast guy, not who you're expecting to cover big business A.J. Brown. So I'd like to see him come back and have a strong performance. I think the defense is kind of going to rise or fall a little bit on him. As far as hot takes, I already gave those. And then best game, I wanted to give the Bears one too. But that's boring. So let me pull up this.
We've been talking about it. Do you have a backup one?
Yeah, I'm pulling up their schedule right now. I had another one marked, but I didn't write it down.
We try to pick different ones. I don't hate it.
Low key, I am excited. My week 1 game that I will be screening off Red Zone for sometimes is going to be Commanders Bucks. That's a week 1 matchup between Baker Mayfield and what I feel like is a pretty surprisingly evenly matched team. The Bucks were scrappy playoff guys last year. I think that's what the Commanders have in store for them this year. My other one would be Commanders Titans. I feel like could also be a good one. So they have a couple promising games that I feel like are going to be some nice shootouts, some fun Jaden Daniels antics kind of games. Sorry, my daughter's being an absolute menace behind me right now. And then biggest departure, I still think it's Allen from last season. They didn't have him for the back half. They traded him at the deadline to the Bears, right?
Devontae Sweat went to
Devontae Sweat, thank you. Yeah, I think they're missing some pieces on that D line, and I think that's really what's going to hurt them this year. I couldn't think of any big pieces they lost in the offseason that I was like, oh yeah. Curtis Samuel, obviously. Not Curtis Samuel. Yes, Curtis Samuel. Jahan Dotson's still there. Curtis Samuel left. I feel like those were some easy
they
ones.
Didn't draft any new wide receivers either.
Mm-mm. So Terry McLaurin's got a lot on his plate too. Hey, just 1 second. Hey, go find mom. Go that way. So we're gonna finish up with the Eagles.
Eagles next.
Yeah, I've got the Eagles retaking this division, but not as comfortably as one would think. I've got them going 11-6. I do think Jalen Hurts is going to continue to struggle. My most polarizing player here is Jalen Hurts is just too easy. So I'm going to go with Devontae Smith, I think is my most polarizing player. I don't like making rookies polarizing players. Jalen Carter could kind of be on here too, but I think Devontae Smith got paid very handsomely. I think he plays a very specific role in this offense, but like, are you ever going to be a one here? I think that's what I want to see. I want to see him get some tougher matchups, maybe games where A.J. Brown comes out or is injured or something. Like, I'd like to see him take over a game and be like that unstoppable force. I think he runs specific kinds of routes very well. I'd like to see him branch out on his route tree a little bit and just be a little more of a formidable piece for them. As far as my hot take is that the Eagles line falls out of top 5. Offensive line falls out of the top 5 this year with the leaving of Jason Kelce. I know they locked down a couple of their other pieces, but I just think he was such a big part of that interior. I actually think the tush push becomes a little obsolete for them. That could be my hot take. I think touchdowns on the line for Jalen Hurts regress some this year, just because Jason Kelce getting that push on the interior is going to be a thing of the past. I know they've probably been workshopping it a lot with their new guy, but it's hard to replace Hall of Famers like that. You know, like Jason Kelce truly was like dominant at the center position aside from snapping. And I feel like that you can't understate that. And he's my biggest departure for them. I know that's retirement, but I think he was just a presence in the locker room and a source of focus that they're going to miss a lot. And then my hot take for the Eagles. No, I already did hot take. My best game for the Eagles. It's hard to pick best games for good teams. Have you noticed that? Because it's like, it feels like any given game could be such a good one. I have their best game against.
They're favored a lot.
Yeah, my best game for them is against the Rams. I feel like this is a team that matches up really well against them. And to see, I think, a true passing quarterback in Matthew Stafford going up against kind of a new age hybrid quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And I think they're going to have to come to play because that Eagles secondary being so young is not going to hold up against Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. So being able to see how a guy like Nick Sirianni also matches up against, you know, elite head coach and Sean McVay. So to me, this is a team that's really trying to like take the baton and stop being seen as kind of like, oh, middle tier. Like they want to be an elite team desperately and they want to be perceived that way. And I think in order to do that, you really have to wrestle that from a team like this. Like, can I prove that I can outcoach Sean McVay? Can I prove that Jalen Hurts can outpass Matthew Stafford? Can I prove that my scheme does better for my wide receivers than their scheme does? So that's why I had that one circled.
You guys, is that the last one? You got all of them?
I think I did them all.
All right. Well, that was the best game that I had as well. So I'll start with that one.
My bad. I should have looked at the sheet.
No, but there was a reason for it, and that was because they're coming off of a pretty crazy run of games. They're going at Bengals, then against the Jags at home, who I know you say are always fraudulent, but can still be a tough out for people, my Bills specifically. They got the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Rams you talked about, and then I'm going to go with the game the following week because they're at the Rams and then at Baltimore the following week So they go on a pretty tough run there. So
and there's people who have the Baltimore Ravens missing the playoffs this year, which seems suspect to me.
I say that's unlikely because I feel like that team got better, but everyone around them kind of got better in different ways too. And their schedule is real tough, especially the first half of the year. The game you chose in the Rams is kind of a real test. But I'm gonna with my 1B. I'm gonna go that game at Baltimore the next week. Biggest departure, I got Hassan Reddick here, going to the Jets. This guy was a terror too. I know you hate it when me and Tyler talk about USF, but I watched this guy play in college when he was with Temple against USF, and he is the reason we still don't have a conference championship. This guy literally just blew us off the ball. He was part of a really good Temple senior team when USF was also good, and this guy is just jumps off the tape when you're watching film, and he's going to be a tough one to replace. Hot take. This one was not really my best hot take, but I think that this Eagles team is going to be the team that breaks the NFC curse, and it's going to start this year, and it's going to happen next year, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be this is like kind of a 2-year hot take. Is that they're going to win this division 2 years in a row, which we haven't seen since the Eagles did it back in 2004. I want to say with Donovan McNabb. It was like 2003, 2004. They went to back-to-back NFC championships, and it's possible they could honestly do the same. We'll see what they can do in the playoffs. I could see them getting into the NFC championship. I don't see them getting to the Super Bowl, but I think they could get to that championship game, and maybe who knows.
Well, the Cowboys won it last year, didn't they? 2023.
They won the division, yes.
So you were saying they'd be the first team to do it back.
I think that the combination of this year and next year.
I understand. Okay, I'm with you. Tracking.
Sorry, it's because this is kind of a 2-year prediction.
Okay, keep that same energy next year.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have to. I mean, we'll find out if they're still alive next year, and then the show goes on. Most polarizing player here I had was Kenneth Gainwell. It's kind of hard to pick out most polarizing players from this Eagles squad, in my opinion. They got a lot of really good players at a lot of good positions. It was the cornerbacks before, but they came out here and they got Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and they still got James Bradbury. But yeah, Kenneth Gainwell was the kind of the running back that was supposed to emerge for this team. Like that, I've heard from Eagles fans. A lot of Eagles fans speak really highly of Kenneth Gainwell, and I just haven't seen it. Maybe I'm not watching as much as they are, and they got this guy Will Shipley coming in with rookie, and now with Saquon in is pretty much your bona fide number 1A and B.
Yeah.
I don't really see Gainwell emerging. And record here, yeah, I had 13-4. I have the 9 is 14-3, 1 seed Super Bowl champs. So I'm gonna go with the Eagles going 13-4 and getting to the NFC championship.
Yeah. But is that all of your? Did you do
That's
everything?
all my points on the Eagles. Yeah.
So yeah, this just transparently, this is one of the teams I'm most worried about regressing going into this year because of how bad they looked in the playoffs last year. And I know everybody calls Howie Roseman like a genius GM. he's a good GM. I don't put as much stock in his draft ability because it feels like he takes the player that all of Twitter would take in that same scenario. And like, how good of a GM can you actually be? It doesn't feel like they do a lot of independent evaluation. I know JC always watches the show. JC's a big Eagles guy, and I'm not hating on the Eagles. I'm not hating on Howie Roseman. I have some trepidations about this secondary. Like, yes, you took two good players, two highly rated players. Can you develop them? They're going to be starting side by side. Like, can you keep them from losing confidence? James Bradbury's not more. Big play Slay is aging out of being able to keep up with some of these elite receivers. So, like, when you line up against Puka Nacua, like, which one of these dudes is covering him? That's a tough ask, not to give up 160 yards to one of the best receivers in the league. Like, so, yeah, I think this division is theirs to lose this year. Just got to be careful that you don't actually do that. So we've done every division right now. So we got just a little time here to talk ball at the end if you want. Who do you think is going to be the most surprising team overall this year, and who's going to be the most disappointing team?
That is all of our divisional dissection. You're right.
Yeah, off the cusp here. I know that's putting you on the spot. We didn't prep this.
I'm sorry. Most surprising team was the first one, and then what was
most disappointing? Like, team with the biggest expectations that doesn't measure in.
Okay, well, I have in the AFC the Bengals taking a big step forward. I don't think that's that surprising. They got an easy schedule and not that debatably the best offense in the NFL, with not that debatably the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. I mean, I'm a huge Lou Anarumo fan. Maybe some people would give it to Steve Spagnuolo, but I wouldn't.
I mean, he's top two. You can put it whatever order you want, but it's like 1A and 1B to me between them.
Yeah. So,
because admittedly, like,
I hate to say it, but the Jets have a real chance to be that team. Again, pretty much for the same reasons as the Bengals. They got a soft schedule. And Aaron Rodgers just has to stay healthy and play like Aaron Rodgers. Do we think Aaron Rodgers can still play like Aaron Rodgers? Probably.
I don't know. See, the Jets would be up there on my list of teams I could potentially.
They could be the disappointing. Like,
some people have like playoff aspirations for this team. Some people have Super Bowl aspirations. But if Rodgers doesn't look good or great,
I don't think it's going to be that easy for the Bills in the AFC East. But you're higher on the Dolphins too. How high do you have the Dolphins going?
The Dolphins would be another candidate for me for most disappointing. I just don't like.
That's what I'm going to go with. I'll do that. I'll go Jets as my upside team, and Dolphins as my downside team.
I think my upside team, I'm going to swing over to NFC. I think the Seahawks have the potential to be a team that is kind of surprising to people. I like their new coach a lot. I call him the Shanahan killer. His defense notoriously good against Shanahan-style offenses. And so you're talking about some of the elite teams in the NFL, elite offenses, right? McDaniels, obviously the Niners, even what the Texans are running right now. I feel like his defense with the stunts and the way he pulls linebackers does really, really well against that. And I think the Seahawks really have some potential to be a surprisingly good team this year. And I think they're going to play tough in that division. The Broncos would be my AFC version of that. I don't think this team's going to be good, but I think a lot of people have them written off as a dumpster fire. And there have been some training reports about Bo Nix actually doing really well. So let's say he comes out and has a semi-decent year. Like, if they go 6-11, that's overperforming by almost everybody's standard. And then, disappointing to me, probably Dolphins or Jets. I could see the Rams disappointing. I just don't have a lot of faith that Cooper Kupp or Stafford have a lot left in the tank. And
NFC West was hard to predict.
Yeah. So But next week we'll actually be talking about real games.
We'll see. We'll see what we get in the Hall of Fame.
We'll be talking about them. Is the Hall of Fame the only football game this week?
Only one. And then the following week, we'll have like a full slate to project preseason wise.
Yeah. So we'll next week we'll be talking about like there's 2 games on Thursday. There's Lions and Panthers, or Lions, Giants, Panthers, Patriots, and then you've got a whole slate on like Friday and Saturday. So yeah, we'll be talking a lot of ball coming up. But
we'll start breaking those guys.
We'll start talking about preseason performers. So we'll have a Hall of Fame game recap and then that slate look ahead. And then we'll probably do maybe some lines that we like or stuff getting into the season. Maybe talk a little bit about week 1 early. So yeah, that's it for us this week, guys. Thanks for tuning in as always. And all the rest of the hosts hopefully will be back next week. You won't have to listen to the 2 of us yap for an hour. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Check out Stadium Rant and have a great week. We'll see you next time.